Hi, this is Leanne Wendt, and I'm giving a PowerPoint presentation for Module 3 in Nursing 495 entitled Take Care. And I decided to entitle it this because the theme of taking care of oneself is woven throughout the whole PowerPoint. My objectives are to discuss Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development, ego integrity versus despair in the older adult, that's stage 8. We're going to discuss the power of self-compassion and how it can enhance aging. We're going to talk about primary versus secondary aging. We are going to discuss the value of life reviews. And to wrap it up, I'm going to discuss ideas to preserve the ego integrity, including physical, mental, spiritual, and social goals. So Erik Erikson was a famous psychologist who came up with these stages of psychosocial development. So I'm going to go over each one real quickly because it is fascinating. It's a map that gives us understanding and direction in life. During the infant stage, the conflict that arises is trust versus mistrust. The infant develops. This this stage begins at birth. Hi, this is Leanne Wendt. I'll be giving my PowerPoint presentation. I entitled it Take Care because I feel like that is the theme that is woven throughout the PowerPoint. I did make some objectives. We're going to discuss Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. We'll be talking about integrity versus despair in the older adult, or stage 8 of this psychosocial development theory. We're going to talk about the power of self-compassion. We'll discuss primary versus secondary aging. We'll discuss the value of life reviews, and to wrap it up, we're going to discuss ideas to preserve ego integrity by making some goals in the physical, mental, spiritual, and social realms. So Erik Erikson, he was a psychologist and psychoanalyst. He's born in the early 1900s and died in 1994. And he developed these stages of psychosocial development. And basically, each stage represents a conflict that arises within an individual. And as this conflict is either won or lost, a certain virtue will develop, or will have a certain outcome in affecting a personality. I'd like to discuss them briefly because they are fascinating. In stage 1, infant through 18 months, trust versus mistrust is the fight or the conflict that arises. And the infant develops a sense of trust when interactions provide reliability, care, and affection. And if this conflict is resolved, hope will be the resulting virtue. Ages 18 to approximately 3 years old, the infant develops a sense of personal control over physical skills and a sense of independence. And this stage is called autonomy versus shame and doubt. Erikson states it is critical that parents allow their children to explore the limits of their abilities within an encouraging environment which is tolerant of failure. So, if this conflict is met successfully, will be the virtue developed. Ages 3 to 5, initiative versus guilt is the child begins to assert control and power over their environment by planning activities, accomplishing tasks, and facing challenges. Success at this stage leads to a sense of purpose, and if it's not met successfully, it can bring a sense of guilt. But if it is met successfully, it brings a sense of purpose. Ages 5 through 13 is industry versus inferiority, and at this stage, the child's peer group will gain greater significance and will become a major source of the child's self-esteem. The child is coping with new learning and social demands, and success in this conflict brings a sense of competence, and failure will result in feelings of inferiority. and competency is the virtue that's developed. Identity versus roles confusion is the fifth stage and occurs between the ages of 12 and 18. Or, let's see, excuse me, 13 and 21. And teenagers explore who they are as individuals and seek to establish a sense of self and may experiment with different roles, activities, and behaviors. This stage is important in forming a strong identity and in developing a sense of direction in life. And the virtue developed here is fidelity. In intimacy versus isolation stage between 21 and 39, during this period, the major conflict centers on forming intimate, loving relationships with other people. Success leads to strong relationships, while failure results in loneliness and isolation, and this is where the virtue of love is developed. Stage 7 is generativity versus stagnation. Happens between approximately the ages of 40 and 65, and people experience a need to create or nurture things that will outlast them, often having mentees or creating positive changes that will benefit other people, a legacy of sorts. Success leads to feelings of usefulness and accomplishment, while failure results in shallow involvement in the world, with the ending virtue either hopefully being care. Now, the last stage is ego integrity versus despair, age 65 years and older. And this is the one we'll discuss a little. It occurs in people generally over the age of 65, but some can start earlier. And they start examining their life. And as they reflect about life, do they have feelings of satisfaction, or do they have a sense of accomplishment and contentment? Like, did they matter? Were they successful? That's ego integrity. Whereas as they reflect over life, do they have a feeling of despair or failure? Does the reflection over their life bring sadness and bitterness and the feeling of discontent at unmet goals? Hopefully if this stage is resolved, the resulting virtue will be wisdom. So where are you in this continuum? Do you feel happy about your life? Or are there things about your life that make you sad? When we look back over our lives, it's so important to have self-compassion. Self-compassion involves unconditional feelings of care, acceptance, and kindness toward oneself when dealing with or having dealt with difficult situations. And self-compassion is made up of three interrelated dimensions: self-kindness versus self-judgment, a sense of common humanity versus isolation, and mindfulness versus over-identification. And self-kindness refers to a tendency to respond to perceived personal inadequacy or difficult situations by giving oneself understanding and comfort like we would a friend. Whereas self-judgment involves responding with harsh self-criticism. I often say to my kids, would you talk to a friend the way you talk to yourself? Common humanity entails viewing discomfort or failure as part of the shared human condition, so that one feels connected to others during painful life experiences. Isolation occurs when a person believes their failings or struggles represent human aberrations. So finally, mindfulness involves viewing responses to difficult experiences from an open and accepting perspective, which allows a clear and balanced recognition of one's distress, whereas over-identification involves fixating on one's suffering and negative self-related cognitions. And research has actually revealed that there's a strong association between self-compassion and positive aging. He said having self-compassion as you review your life is critical if you're going to age in a positive manner. There's a test found at this website that at the end, it gives you a number to how self-compassionate you are and ideas on how to develop that characteristic. And the website is right here. So a review of one's life can actually be a healthy way to strengthen ego integrity. In fact, Erickson viewed it as a vital thing to do in order to resolve the ego integrity versus despair conflict. If life review is also considered to fall in the field of reminiscence, which is actually a field that was introduced by Robert Butler in 1963. And he proposed that reviewing one's life allowed older adults to increase their overall well being. Reminiscent interventions have developed since that time and vary in intensity, structure, and modality. Simple reminiscence, mainly unstructured autobiographical storytelling promoting social interaction. Then there's the life review, structured with focus on integration of positive and negative life events to promote self-acceptance, and life review therapy provides conditions to restructure memories and promote change. So my dad did this. He wrote his life story and we printed it out on lulu.com, and we all have books about his life, and it really was a good thing for him to do, and we enjoy it as well. So there's such a thing in science called primary aging versus secondary aging. And primary aging is something we really can't avoid. It's inevitable body deterioration that occurs throughout life. It's accumulation of biochemical damage that affects all of our senses, balance, immune system, and our ability to adapt to stress. And it's sometimes referred to senescence, which is the condition or process of deterioration with age and the loss of the cell's power to divide and grow. I see that I am running out of time. So we're going to make we can do goals in each of to prevent ego integrity. We're going to make goals in each of these areas: physical goals, which is walking, stretching, light weightlifting, yoga, swimming or water aerobics, tai chi or isometrics, and it's never too late to start exercise. You can make mental goals by doing Sudokus, crossword puzzles, puzzles in books, reminiscing and journaling, learning a new skill, learn social media, join a club, learn a new game, and find ways to have a good laugh. Spiritual goals could be going to church if it's offered, um, practice guided breathing, practice gratitude, wonder and creativity, kindness and connecting, meditation and making music. So practice, practice, practice. Social goals can be to take part in social activities that are offered at the residence, such as games or other new skills that you can learn. One could commit to learning video calling, such as Skyping or other means of connecting online to family or friends. You can go to church, you can join a club, and look around and see who might need a friend and reach out. Try and look outward. So, Erickson's 8 stages of psychosocial development can give us guidance to navigate and understand the journey of life. Stage 8, ego integrity versus despair, can be improved on by practicing self compassion and reminiscing, or doing a life review. And we know that aging is non negotiable, but can be slowed down by practicing good health habits. Goals can be made in each of these areas for enhanced life quality: physical, mental, and spiritual goals, and also social goals. And these are my references. Thank you very much.